Struggling alone can be a hard part of cancer. It's important to find other people who've been through the ringer before. However, what to do after cancer can be the biggest struggle of all. How will you act? What should you do with your second chance at life? Will you have any regrets? Luckily, there are some people out there who know how to administer some tough guidance to help see cancer survivors through that tumultuous period. If you missed the ninth tale celebration, please don't forget to listen to the reading. I'll drop a hover card in the upper right that you can click on, or in the description below. The tales are best read in sequential order. I hope that you'll find this particular tale interesting, and please feel free to leave any comments or feedback. This is the 10th tale of Cancerika, with just 2 more to go, so I'm really hoping you like the overall story. Please let me know if it's any good or not. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch more tales as they are released. Please enjoy the 10th tale of Cancerika, Guidance, the IHOP Cancer Guys Club. Cancerika, Tales of Survival, Despair, and Hilarity, written and narrated by Beauheart. Tale number 10, Guidance, the IHOP Cancer Guys Club. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Romans chapter 12, verses 6 through 8. It was a lonely night in my apartment eating macaroni and cheese for dinner with a side of cancer meds. It had been a few months living with serotonin, and I was starting to feel antsy. It was like something was missing in my life. A gigantic void where human interaction should have been. Being around supportive people like Miss Eliza, Shane, and Mary was swell. But I always felt like there was a barrier between us. It was a contrived role play where I was the sick, helpless patient, and they were the gracious, compassionate caretakers. It seemed as though they were always walking on eggshells around me. Like if they said the wrong thing, I would suddenly keel over and die. I needed some real camaraderie in my misery. I needed other guys who could actually empathize with my situation. I basically wanted to be like Edward Norton's character in Fight Club, where he went around to different support groups in the city to escape his mundane corporate existence. If I could get Meatloaf to hug me at the testicular cancer men's meetup, I was confident my life would improve dramatically. The emotional high alone would be enough of a dopamine rush to tide me over for months. Chuck Palahniuk was a big influence on myself and many of my cohorts. At work, I frequently quoted the famous scene where Edward Norton's bag goes missing at the airport because it's vibrating. It came in handy whenever I found an errant laptop bag in the break room, and no one seemed to know who it belonged to. 9 times out of 10, it's electric razor, but every once in a while, it's a dildo. Of course, it's company policy never to imply ownership in the event of a dildo. We have to use the indefinite article, a dildo, never your dildo. I wasn't sure if Chuck ever battled cancer or not, but he certainly captured the need for male companionship when drowning in a modern cesspool of hyperfeminization. So with great enthusiasm, I began my quest for the perfect support group. The Facebook groups for serotonin were okay, but they were mostly technical information. What did the chemotherapy regimen consist of? Were any operations needed? How much were the remission meds, etc.? I poked around in the comments section. It was mostly just people asking medical questions. It was a bit of a snooze. I better go local, I thought. After some Googling, an ad popped up for cancer support groups. It reminded me of one of those hot young singles near you ads, but it had pictures of young women with the chemo scarf wrapped around their head, the modern cancer aesthetic. I checked it out, but it was all breast cancer survivor groups, nothing for men. Now, I don't have anything against women battling breast cancer getting together for a meetup, but it seemed like everything in our modern world was increasingly designed to displace any sort of male companionship. I couldn't find anything related to men's cancer groups, testicular, prostate, etc. And I imagine if there was one somewhere, it would have been shut down by the powers that be. Dissatisfied with my biting social commentary wouldn't be heard by anyone who made a difference, I continued my search for a cancer support group that would take me in. I came across an old TED Talk on fighting cancer from a woman who looked like she was a high-powered attorney before contracting the disease. She talked about the need to raise awareness among the public and get people to understand the pain we're going through. She was a caricature of the corporate feminism that Sheryl Sandberg had ushered in during the mid-2010s. All very polished and respectable, all very cringe. It was no wonder Sam Hyde famously lampooned this over 10 years ago. The TED Talk didn't even have the correct premise. The general public already knew about cancer, and they already knew it really sucked. After all, practically everyone knew someone who had died or had struggled with cancer. I thought it was more important that people accepted us as normal humans who could actually go on to achieve something, instead of just battling through a disease. However, I'd really hoped to find solace in a cancer group with other cancer dudes to get that private pity party. But my short-lived quest seemed to have failed. Thankfully, like most big opportunities in my life, it would later appear by total luck. I went into the hospital for chemotherapy the following day and noticed a biker-looking dude in a skull bandana sitting patiently in the lobby of the oncology wing. His leather jacket advertised the Warlock's MC, and it had a patch on the back that looked like Gandalf on steroids. "Hey, how's it going, man?" he said in a raspy voice. "Hey there," I replied politely. Oh no, not one of these guys, I thought. Being a self-respecting millennial, I wholeheartedly rejected the narcissistic aesthetic of the boomer biker. Jackholes taking up both lanes of traffic and LARPing as rebels when they all had day jobs as accountants. It took a special kind of entitled rich person to act like they do. It was a hard pass from me. Like most men of my generation, I identified with the cool stoicism of Ryan Gosling's character in Drive. He actually had a proper car, not some chromed out monstrosity on two wheels. "What brings you into this neck of the woods?" he asked me. "Oh, you know, the cancer and all," I replied vaguely. "I was guessing you weren't here for the free sodas. What flavor of cancer you got?" He continued on with the questions. I wasn't used to any other patients talking to me at the hospital. It was usually a bit embarrassing due to the personal nature of it all, like asking someone how many times they went to the John per day. However, his very scratchy voice had an odd soothing quality to it. "Serotonin, it's been a few months, but chemo's going well, I guess," I said. "How about yourself?" "That's great, brother. Hope it continues going well. I've been dealing with throat cancer almost 10 years, can you tell?" He smiled and pointed to a massive scar on the lower part of his neck above the trachea. It was surrounded by tattoos that looked like they had been applied with a safety pin in Indian ink. "Oh, wow. Were you a smoker?" I asked. "Yeah, Marlboros, weed, meth. I smoked it all until they locked me up in Fellridge. That's where I started getting chemo. As you can imagine, the prison healthcare system ain't exactly world class, but they did pull out the tumor from my throat. Been cancer-free almost 8 years. I'm just here to get my remission meds." "Oh, that's cool," I said. I wanted to ask him what he was in Fellridge for, but I held my tongue. It was a maximum security federal prison upstate, and his time in the slammer was probably a bit more serious than my one-night slumber party at county for a possession misdemeanor. Instead, I blurted out, "Do you know any cancer support groups?" "Nothing official, but there's a group of us who meet at the IHOP on Tuesday night. Want to join?" he said. "Yeah, that sounds great," I said. "It's just a bunch of dudes eating pancakes, so don't get too excited," he said as he extended a hand. "My name's Frankie." On his forearm, I could see the famous Bible quote from Matthew chapter 7, verse 7, tattooed on his arm. It was in a fancy script that looked much more recent than his older, more crude tats. "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you." "Yeah, it's a pleasure. See you Tuesday night for the pancakes," I said. I had to take the subway to the other side of the city and walk 5 blocks to get to what was probably the last International House of Pancakes in the entire state. Between COVID and everyone ordering carbohydrate slop on their phone, the once iconic diner just wasn't a draw anymore. It was a sad state of affairs that a piece of Americana was going the way of the dodo. I walked into the diner and was greeted by a middle-aged woman with a messy bun. "Are you one of the cancer guys?" she asked. "Sure am," I said. "Back there, hun," she said, pointing to a small dining room that was sequestered from the rest of the restaurant. I walked into the room and there were about a dozen guys smiling and joking with each other. The plastic mugs of coffee with the IHOP logo were flowing freely, and everyone seemed to have a half-eaten Danish in front of them. "Hey, good to see you, man," Frankie said. "Let me introduce you around." The group of guys was all much older than me, but they came from all walks of life. I met a banker, a real estate agent, a janitor named Lemmy, who could have possibly been related to the late Motorhead frontman, I'm not sure, plus a fellow who worked at the DMV named Tim. I grabbed a seat, munched on a Danish, and did my best to mingle. "So, what brings you to our little group?" Tim asked. "Frankie found me at the hospital, completely destitute like Oliver Twist," I said. "Well, hopefully you aren't in that bad shape, or you wouldn't be here," Tim said. "Believe it or not, I was stage 4 lung cancer, but I managed to turn things around for myself. Are you still in treatment?" "Yeah, I've been doing the chemo for serotonia a few months," I said. "I guess it's going well." "The chemo's always a bummer, but you'll get over it. The big thing is what comes next," Tim said. I guess I hadn't really thought about long-term plans yet. "Is that what you guys talk about here? What comes next?" "You'll see," Tim said. "We'll get started after we get our pancakes." I ordered the chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream like I was a little kid again, and continued sucking down the free coffee. I was a bit skeptical about what Tim was foreshadowing with his "you'll see" comment. If this turned out to be some Manson-like cult, or if I was invited to partake in a multi-level marketing scam, I was going to run out and stiff them with the bill. Once the waitress brought everyone their food, and after we all drowned it in fruity, syrupy goodness, Frankie raised his hand. "Let's commence the talks," he said, and banged down his hand hard on the table. "Hear, hear," everyone said in unison. "Tonight, you'll remember what I told you last week, we're talking about dealing with other people." This was not what I expected at all. I wanted group hugs and crying. I wanted meek souls who'd been ravaged by disease. I wanted to commiserate with fellow victims. This was shaking up to be some kind of bizarre self-help seminar. Although I was slightly intrigued, so I didn't fly the coop. "Had a bit of trouble at the DMV today," Tim started. "Some hot-tempered bozo yelled at me because his eye color was wrong on his license. All I wanted to do was punch him in the face." Tim was a rather large gentleman, so I made a mental note not to whine about my eye color to government office. Instead, I took 3 deep breaths, and we got his record straightened out. "Hear, hear," everyone else cheered in unison. "I tried calling my daughter again today," the banker announced. "Her husband answered and said that she still doesn't want to speak with me. I feel so ashamed about cheating on my wife, but it was just the first opportunity I had since remission and—" "Hey," Frankie interrupted. "You know we can't use our disease as an excuse. You gotta do better than that, Jerry." "Okay, Frankie, I'll try to write another letter to my daughter then," the man conceded. Going around the table, everyone confessed their struggles and how they were going to resolve them. Frankie guided the group from getting too off topic and would interject when he thought they weren't telling the full story. Matt, the janitor, admitted to having a desire to poison his neighbor's cat after it meowed all night, but instead he resolved to try buying it some treats instead. "Well, there you go," Frankie said. "No one likes a cat killer, especially me." It finally got to be my turn, and I really hadn't thought of what I was going to say. "Did you want to share anything there, young gun?" Frankie asked me. "Well, I guess I just wish I could be a bit nicer to people. I'm not sure if I'm having any specific issues. It's all right there," Frankie consoled me. "Let's chat after the meeting, and we'll come up with some ideas for you to talk about at the next meeting." I clearly flunked the assignment. We paid up for our pancakes, danishes, and the barrel drum full of coffee that was consumed. The other guys were kind enough to give me their contact info and add me to the group chat entitled IHOP Cancer Guys. I was told I could reach out any time. Frankie told me to meet him out in the parking lot. It sounded like something out of a cheesy 1970s high school movie. Hopefully he didn't want to instigate a rumble. "What do you think of my bike? Maybe you think it's lame. Young guys aren't into bikes," he said. I looked over the chromed engine that was shaped like a V. I didn't know much about cars or bikes, but I watched a few episodes of American Chopper growing up. It was amazing how even though these guys were always dirty and greasy, their bikes were super clean. "No, it's cool. I like it. Not sure I could ride it, though," I said. Harley's a bit big for a starter bike. We get you started off on a Yamaha or something. Anyways, what did you think of our little cancer club?" Frankie asked. "It was good. Great bunch of guys. I just didn't know what to say when it was my turn. Sorry about that," I said. "Yeah, that's okay," Frankie started. "It's a bit overwhelming the first time. I learned how to run these little group talks while I was doing my stretch at Bell Ridge. Although the focus was on drug abuse instead of cancer. Everyone in the joint lies all the time and has an excuse for why they were sent up to prison. So you get pretty good at spotting the nonsense. Although once people got honest with themselves, good things would happen." "Yeah, I could see that, being honest and all," I said. "What I would like for you to do is come up with 3 people you'd like to improve your relationship with. What more can you do to make them feel better?" Frankie inquired. "I was going to text it in the group chat later this week, but I'll give you a head start." "Thanks, I'll get cracking on it," I said. "See you around, and thanks for coming," Frankie said as he fired up his chopper and took off into the late evening. When I got home to my apartment, I was eager to get started on the project. It was odd thinking about how I could help other people. Being the self-serving type that was standard issue for my generation, I always thought about how I could take from other people. This also applied to society more broadly. Even when I was in the service, ostensibly to serve my country, I just did it because I had nothing better to do and wanted some cash for college. The first person that obviously came to mind for making their life better was Mom. I had been antagonistic for the past 33 years. Perhaps it was time to turn over a new leaf. The next group was all the people who helped me along the way with the cancer. Shane, Rose, Mark, Tom, and Miss Eliza, to name a few. I could maybe do something sweet and unexpected for them, like cook a big batch of brownies. No one would see that coming. The last person would be Zelda. Instead of making her some anime weeb fantasy for one night only, maybe I could buy her a coffee and explain the situation with my illness. She worked in the city after all. It would be good to thank her for the fun night too. I didn't exactly want a one-way ticket to the friend zone, but I thought it was important to follow Frankie's guidance and trust the proverbial plan. As a bonus, I wanted to include becoming more Christ-like. However, that sounded a bit too pompous and perhaps even approaching David Koresh levels of delusion. Maybe I would follow Christ's example instead. The Bible commanded that, and it's something I desperately needed to do. Looking to impress Frankie, I sent off the list late that evening to him before going to bed. I kept it short and sweet. "Hey Frankie, here's what I got for 3 people. I needed to do more to improve their life. I also included JC as a bonus 4th. Hope that's cool. Number 1, reconcile with Mom. Number 2, do something sweet for the people who actually cared when I got sick. Number 3, develop a friendship with a new person I met at a GNR concert. Number 4, follow Christ's example." I jumped into bed, but I was surprised to get a quick text right back from him. "Good list. Let's talk at the hospital later." When I arrived at the hospital on Friday for another chemo day, I looked for Frankie, but didn't see him sitting around the lobby. The doctor's door opened after 5 minutes, and I noticed him and Frankie standing there. The doctor reached out to shake his hand. It was odd. I'd never known the doc to be the handshaking type. Frankie came over to see me and looked a bit rattled. "Hey, Frankie, everything all right?" I asked. "Yeah, we're good. Thanks for sending me over your list," he said. "I like that you added in a bonus 4th person, our Lord and Savior. Nice. Also, I didn't know you were a fan of Guns N' Roses." "Yeah, their Feather Creek show was killer. You like them too?" I asked. "I should. I was a roadie for them briefly in the 90s. Axl could be a jerk, but all in all, they were good guys." Frankie's eyes glassed over like he was recalling a fond memory. "Anyways, you gonna be ready for our meetup at IHOP? I'm calling on you first, young gun." "I won't blow it this time," I promised him. I wanted to ask him about his time with Guns N' Roses and more generally about the nutty days of the 1990s, but frankly said he had to get going. The following Tuesday, we had our Cancer Dude meetup. The group seemed kind of surprised I had come back after the previous get-together. "Hey, we're just glad you made it back here," Tim said. "I know the format of the discussion is a bit intense for some people." "I'm ready to dazzle everyone with my statement this week," I said. "All right, my man, let's see what you got," Tim said. Frankie raised his hand once again to get started and then pounded it down on the table. "Today we're going to be talking about how we can make those special people in our life feel a bit more special," Frankie announced. "Our newest acolyte has volunteered himself to be the first victim. Go ahead." "Thanks, Frankie," I said with a bit of nervousness as everyone looked up from their pancakes and focused on me. "First, I need to make things right with my mother. I kind of made a fool out of myself last time I was over at her place, and I want to make it up to her. The second group I want to do something for is the people who helped me out when I first got diagnosed a few months ago. I want to bake some brownies for them." The group chuckled a bit and Frankie interjected. "Brownies? What are you, a Girl Scout or something?" I thought for a moment about taking things to the next level. I remembered an episode of Mr. Robot where Remy Malek hosted dinner on the streets of New York for all his friends and the people he wanted to make amends with. I blurted out, Okay, no brownies. I'm going to prepare a huge dinner on the roof of my apartment. You know, like lasagna and salad or something like that. I'm a terrible cook, but the view of the city ain't bad." "Now we're talking," Frankie said. "Keep going." "I also want to take out this girl I met up at Feather Creek a few weeks ago," I started. "Is she a looker or what?" Frankie said. "Yeah, she's not bad. Probably out of my league, but it's worth a shot. When I met her, I didn't give her my full story and was just using her like a piece of gum, to chew up and spit out. I'd like to get something going." "That sounds good," Frankie said. There was a bit of hesitation. "What about the last person you wanted to share?" I wasn't sure if I was comfortable sharing my faith in God in such a secular environment. Although the Apostle Paul said we were supposed to confess our love of Christ with our mouth. Here goes nothing, I thought. I'd like to follow more in the footsteps of Jesus, not to get too sanctimonious, but I can't live my life just by myself. I need a higher power, and with that wisdom, I think I could do something decent for the world, instead of just take from the world. I'm not sure. I looked around the room and saw nodding heads. No, Frankie said. "We get what you're saying. Thanks for sharing." After the meeting, Frankie asked me to see him out in the parking lot again. I was hoping to get some accolades for my time talking, but he hit me up with some deep insight and a favor instead. "I think you're getting it," Frankie started. "Any dummy can beat cancer. The drugs and the doctors do all the hard work. But it's what you do with your life after. That's when things get tough." Yeah, I never really thought about it until I came to the IHOP meetup. I guess I was just stuck in a day-to-day cycle of meds and survival, I said. "That's why it's important to think ahead a bit. When I went into remission, I was still in prison with years left to go. I thought about all the bad stuff I did and all the people I loved who had died. I felt real guilty about it. I felt like I didn't deserve any more chances at life. But I repented and God led me down a new path. I think he's leading you down a new path as well." "Oh, sounds like survivor's guilt. I struggle with that too," I said. "The best thing to do is just make your life count. Have you ever seen that movie with Steve McQueen, Papillon?" Frankie asked. "Sure, it's a classic," I said. "There's a part when he's stuck in solitary for like 5 years, and he thinks to himself that his biggest crime is a wasted life," Frankie said. "Don't end up going out with that big of a regret like I almost did when I got throat cancer. Do something with yourself." "I will. Thanks, Frankie," I said. "Hey, I got a favor to ask you too. It's a big one," Frankie said. "Sure, anything," I said. I figured he'd want me to fix his computer or phone, which was what people usually asked me when they learned I was an IT guy. "I've written a little book about myself, about my life. I'd really like for my family that still talks to me to read it and some of my friends to read the thing. Do you think you could look it over?" "Sure, I don't have any experience with publishing, but I like to read and..." "Oh, that's okay," Frankie said. "You're a smart college guy. Just take a look at it and make it pretty." He handed me a 256 megabyte thumb drive that looked like it had survived a nuclear apocalypse. It was a good thing I'd been sent to a class on how to recover damaged data. Yeah, you bet, Frankie. I'll get started right away on it, I said. When I got back to my place, I wanted to quickly peruse Frankie's memoir to see what I was dealing with. He broke up every chapter into their own little Word files. I opened some of them up, and the formatting was a disaster. He did the old guy typewriter bit of pressing the spacebar 10 to 15 times to indent a paragraph. Additionally, the text was littered with grammatical errors and typos. I've got my work cut out for me, I said to myself. After reading and gussying up the manuscript, I realized there were some real gems in there. Frankie really had an interesting life. The reason he got sent up to Fell Ridge was because of his involvement in a shootout with the FBI, which I remember reading about when I was in high school. In 2007, an undercover agent had penetrated our Warlock's MC and knew about us couriering methamphetamine across state lines. Unfortunately, the feds decided to bust us during our annual Labor Day retreat at Camp Winnetaka. When they showed up in their black SUVs, we all pulled out shotguns and just started blasting. We thought it was a rival MC or Al-Qaeda. We had no idea that it was the FBI. It was crazy. Frankie also got shanked while in prison. So I called out this punk Aryan Nation guy for being a chomo. Next thing you know, 4 of these clowns show up in the shower, and one of them sticks me with a toothbrush shiv in the kidney. I was in the med unit for weeks recovering. I had to look up the word chomo on urbandictionary.com to learn that it was a jailhouse slang for a pedophile. I vowed to add it to my lexicon of handy insults. I also learned why Frankie got all sensitive about recalling his Guns N' Roses roadie days. I first met Kara when we were doing the GNR tour on the West Coast. I was part of the road crew lugging Slash's guitar collection and the drum kit around. She was in charge of the band's wardrobe. One night after a particularly difficult show in Seattle where Axl got in a fight with the bouncer, we all went out for drinks in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Kara and I bonded over our time growing up as crazy metalhead rejects in high school, even though we were raised in different parts of the country. After a few drinks, I slow danced with her while Holy Diver by Ronnie Dio played on the jukebox. I looked into her gorgeous blue eyes and went in for a kiss. 9 months later, little Susie was born. I haven't talked to my daughter for years, but I hope I can get the opportunity to make amends in the near future. It was interesting that his daughter was about my age. Perhaps that's why he took such a shine to me. I'm grateful he did, because I found myself with a new lease on life, to borrow a cliche. I wanted to become a person who accomplished something great, even though I thought of myself as broken in many ways. I wanted to be like Matthew McConaughey's character in the first season of True Detective, busting high-profile pedos, even with a troubled past of my own. During the week, I was excited for the next IHOP meetup because I wanted to see what the other guys had done with their lives post-chemo. The inspiration would be magnetic. I kept checking the group chat to see what topic Frankie would announce, but it was radio silence. Then I got that terrible call from Tim. "Hey, buddy, I'm sorry to inform you, but Frankie passed away last night," Tim said. "The throat cancer finally got him." "Wait, what?" I mumbled, completely shocked. "I thought he was in remission." "So did I, but I guess he was just lying to us about that so we wouldn't worry about him. He was always kind of like that. Anyway, the funeral is on Sunday, and we'll all be there. I'll text you the details," Tim said. "Thanks, I'll be there," I replied. The only person close to me who died was Sergeant Dubs in Afghanistan. And when you were downrange, there was sort of an expectation of death, as it seemed to follow you around every valley and road in that cursed country. But Frankie's death hit me like a sucker punch. I didn't think someone so full of life could get taken out by cancer so unexpectedly. On Sunday, I threw on my suit and headed out to the Shady Lawn Cemetery outside the city for Frankie's service. When I arrived, there were dozens of cars and what must have been 100 or more Harley Davidsons parked in the lot. Some people were wearing formal wear like myself, but most of the others were decked out in their motorcycle jackets with MC patches. I saw a lot of different clubs too, not just the Warlock's MC that Frankie was part of. There were the Razorbacks, the Gangrenes, and the hilariously named Smokin' Grannies, which was an all-female motorcycle club. I caught up with Tim and the others from the IHOP Cancer guys. They were sharing stories about how Frankie had helped them turn their lives around. Tiny, a massive man who did HVAC repair, said, "While I was recovering from my prostate surgery, Frankie showed up to the hospital with a box of cheap Costco cookies. There was a note in the box after I ate them. All that said, I better get back to the meetup on Tuesday with a plan of action. I just wanted to sit around and get sponge bathed by nurses, but Frankie shows up to give me a real kick in the butt." "He always had that gentleman charm to him, didn't he?" Tim said, laughing. "I remember when I was crying at a meeting because I was so happy I beat lung cancer. And he said, 'So you're back to where you started before cancer. Who cares? What's next?' He had a unique motivational style. I'll miss him, though." Inside the funeral parlor, there was a massive line to view Frankie's body. When I finally got to the front, I saw him peacefully resting in the casket. Instead of a suit and tie, he was wearing a green bandana, greasy blue jeans, and his Warlock's MC motorcycle jacket. I pulled out the 256 megabyte thumb drive he gave me, put it in one of his front jacket pockets, and said, "Here you go, Frankie. I cleaned up your memoir for you like I promised. Take it with you over Jordan, and I'll work on getting it out to the world down here. Go easy, man." I grabbed a soda plus some slightly rotten cantaloupe slices and walked around the service. There was a woman about my age with blue eyes who looked like a young female version of Frankie. "Hey, are you Susie by chance?" I asked. "Yes, how did you know? Are you a friend of my father's?" she asked. "I just knew him for a short time, but he gave me a lot of good tips on, well, a lot of stuff. Life, I guess," I said, shrugging my shoulders. I couldn't really put into words how much knowledge he gave me to think about. "He also asked me to edit the book he had written, and he mentioned you in it." "Really?" "We weren't too close. We had a falling out a while ago. I knew he tried hard to reach out, but I sort of ignored him. I guess now it's too late," she said with a hangdog look. "Sorry for your loss. Maybe this book was his way to make it up to you," I suggested. "Thanks. My father was pretty good at helping other people, but he kind of struggled with his own family. I mean, I'm glad he made such a positive impact on your life, but I guess I'm just a bit jealous that he had so many close friends, even though he struggled being close with me," she said. "He was definitely a unique guy. I did an edit on the memoir, and I'll send it to you, I promise." "Thanks, I appreciate it," Susie said. I could understand how Susie felt upstaged when her father had literally hundreds of friends and comrades. I was sorry for her, but a lot of people who do great deeds in the world have problems in their personal lives. Van Gogh was a depressed sad sack, William Faulkner was an abusive drunk, and the Apostle Paul was actually called out in the Bible for being the original toxic co-worker. Frankie was, of course, not on that level of dysfunction, but perhaps he got so distracted helping others, he struggled taking care of his own personal situation. That's probably why he let the cancer consume him, while simultaneously helping others until the bitter end. I hope that sending Susie a copy of the book would smooth things over in his post-mortem. After a few hours, the pallbearers, who were all in Warlock's MC jackets, picked up the casket from the funeral parlor. We all followed them into the graveyard to lay Frankie to rest. Some tears were shed, but there were a lot more cheers. Cries of, "We'll miss you, Frankie," and "Thanks for everything, Frankie," rippled through the solemn backdrop. As the body was slowly lowered into its final resting place, I thought about how stupid I was to be so dismissive of Frankie when I first saw him in the hospital a few weeks prior. Sometimes your life gets turned around when you least expect it. I sure am glad mine did. Rest in peace, Frankie. End of story. Thank you for having a listen to this tale of Cancerika. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below whether you like the story or not. A forthcoming ebook, print book, and audiobook with all 12 tales will be released on April 18th, 2025 on Amazon and Audible. Links are posted in the description below. The pre-order is available for the ebook. It's $4.99 or free if you're an Amazon Prime. You can shoot your mouth off at me over on X. I'm at Beauheart. Please visit friendlyfrogpress.com to see our collection of ebooks, paperbacks, and audiobooks that are for sale at Amazon and Audible. Until next time, this is Paul Beauheart, signing off.